is join the PCUSA Communicators Network. And then we also have a Facebook group. And every Monday, I will not be doing it this week, but every Monday I do, it's called a Monday Minute. And it's like a 1-minute video related to something communications related. And then every Friday, we have Friday freebies where like you can get social media graphics and that type of thing. And then there's just always kind of conversations amongst communicators that are like, okay, yeah, and it's Facebook / I think it's Communicators PCUSA. Let me check. Yeah, Communicators Network PCUSA. And it's got Micah 6.8 at the top as the Facebook cover. There's, there are folks in there just do that search and it'll take you to the PCUSA page. On the right-hand side, if you go down to where it says resources, you can click that. It'll take you to a new page, and there are there's all kinds of resources. I did a 1-hour workshop on social media. There's social media playbook, there's all kinds of presentations and all that kind of stuff. Or you can just email me. I'll give everybody my email whenever they come in. And No, I'm talking about something different. This is a denominational resource. Oh my goodness, yeah. Yeah. So while folks are still coming in, I want to give you all a denominational resource. So part of my position with the PCUSA, excuse me, is to work with my colleague Gail Strange at the Communicators Network for the PCUSA. And we have a Facebook group that you can join, and it's for PCUSA clergy, staff, communicators. If you're a volunteer or you want your volunteers to be on that group, that's fine. I'll approve them. I run it. I'm the community manager. So just go there, answer the 3 questions. If you don't answer the questions, I'm not going to approve you. That's just the way it goes. It's a safety mechanism for us. I don't want any trolls. So just ask your folks to answer the 3 questions, and then you will be able to get resources that we post weekly on that Facebook group. There's social media graphics, there's videos, there's all kinds of things. We have a prayer wall as part of that. So. And you'll get to, we can chat, we can stay in contact, which I would love. You could also go to the Communicators Network website. If you just do a Google search, Communicators Network PCUSA, it'll come up. And you can look at past, if you go down to the resources, or it'll take you to past workshops that we've done. I did a social media 101 kind of workshop. We've done workshops on websites and e-news, all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of resources there. If you'd like to get in touch with me, if let's just say you can't find what you're looking for, or you have questions, email me directly. It's ddee.decker@pcusa.org. If it's a denominational kind of resource that you're looking for, or if you want to talk to me about something else, you can email me personally, and that's diet.decker@gmail.com, or you can go to the website. So as a PCUSA resource, the Communicators Network is free of charge. It's open to local churches, presbyteries, mid-councils, and my friend Gail and I will, if you're wanting a specialized workshop for your church individually, reach out to us and we can make that happen. And it's free of charge. There's no charge to have us come and do a specialized communication strategy, digital strategy, what have you. We can do that either online, digitally, or we can do that after the first of the year in person. So, that's what we're here for as a denomination. So, think you all should be able to get in touch with me. If you have any questions at all, ever, shoot me an email. Seriously. No worries. This is my ministry. This is what I do. It's weird, but it's what I do. Okay. We are going to enter into a time now where we get to have hopefully more of a conversation. And I don't know, did anybody look at the lunch questions? You did? Wow, you're on it. Oh, yes. Oh, there we go. Yes, I love it. Okay, if you didn't, it's okay. My group didn't. I got really excited about the Scotcheroos because, that's just who I am. So I wanted us to just have, a little short conversation, go through some of these lunch questions. I think Rob has a couple of microphones so that we can all hear one another well. And then after this, Sarah is going to join me, and we're going to have some question and answer kind of time there as well. So, but I'm really curious. Talk to me about, and you guys just raise your hands, super casual. If y'all haven't figured out, I am super casual. I don't do pomp and circumstance. So let's start backwards. Question number 8, if you're a visual and you want to read along, let's look at question number 8. How, quote, new is media in Christianity? Given how many times Christianity has adopted to new media patterns and tools, why are we asking these questions now? Essentially what I'm getting at is, what is so different about this technological internet age that seems to have people off kilter? Or do you think anytime new media has been established, are people off kilter? Yeah.
It's happening fast.
Say again?
It happens fast. It's developed fast and it's evolving fast. And if you're a little bit afraid of it at all, or you don't think it pertains to what you're doing, then it's scary.
Okay. Did everybody hear? Okay, say it again.
It's happening fast. So the social media started out maybe just with one thing, and then it's now Instagram, and it's Snapchat, and like you brought up TikTok, and I haven't gotten on TikTok, but my kids send me stuff all the time, and I'm going to probably have to. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I don't want to, but it's a lot to keep up with. Mm-hmm. It's overwhelming, happens fast, and then it's what's the next thing, and are we going to be prepared for the next thing? So it's a little bit like a fear thing.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Change? Yeah. Anybody else? Sure.
I think we had to make a shift really quickly from technology is bad. You shouldn't be looking at your phone. You shouldn't be checking your phone. You shouldn't be on social media to, we're going to Zoom worship today on Facebook. And so I think how we viewed technology as a whole has changed very quickly.
I just want to be sure everybody can hear everybody else, so.
I think for instance, computers have been available to some who had deep pockets for 40 years, if not a little bit more. However, early on, they had a reputation of being well, a bit of a learning curve, shall we say. And that stayed with people. I think there's still that stigma, if you will, that's out there lasting. Having come from the business world and retired only 2 years ago, I worked with individuals who really fought it when the aerospace company decided to adopt Google Drive and Gmail and Hangouts and oh my.
Yeah.
And I had individuals who sat near me saying, I've got to be on a meeting in Hangouts. Michelle, come over and help me with it.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
And you did, just
Yeah.
to empower them.
The pastor of the last church that I worked at, he's now retired, and he taught his new member classes with an overhead projector. Y'all remember? You know what I'm talking about? Like with that, and he would take his little pencil, and it was cute. He would write on his little slide, and I was like, and this was a smart man. And I was like, Dr. Bond, how about you let me do a PowerPoint? No, I'm not doing that. I know this, I'm comfortable with this, I don't want to do it. And I'm like, I will run it for you. No. Are you sure? Because I feel like we could, nope, Thank you for pushing me into the 21st century in other ways. This I'm not changing. It's like, okay. And so, it goes back to change and just feeling overwhelmed and not wanting to do it. So I think that, to your point, I'm sorry, the plaid, what's your name? Pam? To Pam's point about, people always being on their phones, and I know, I am not, although this is what I deal with every day, and I am very passionate about social media and technology. I also think that we have to set some healthy boundaries with that, right? We cannot just stick our heads in the sand and think, oh, well, there's not a dark side to this, because there very much so is. And even Facebook is coming out and saying, thank God for the whistleblower in my perspective, saying we knew we were doing harm and we did it anyway. And as a former youth pastor, whenever I had my youth group, I had to sit down with my teenage youth group members and say, I'm seeing a correlation, and if your picture on Instagram doesn't get a certain number of likes, you take it down and you put another one up that's even more provocative. Can you tell me more about what's going on there? What's happening there? I have members of my family who have an eating disorder because of the way and the pressure that they feel because of social media to look a certain way. And that's very real. And that does some serious and significant damage. And this is not a girl problem, because this stuff happens with boys too. This is not a gender problem. This is a cultural problem that we are having. And so I am a huge proponent of families setting social media boundaries. In my family, there's no technology at the table. You're not doing it. I do not care if you like me or get mad at me or not. We are sitting together as a family, and even if it's just my wife and I, no technology at the table. I think that it's really helpful if you can have a family charging bank, like in your kitchen, at 9 o'clock every night or 10 o'clock every night, everybody plugs in their phone in one place. Because here's what I discovered. When my kids come down for school and they are barely able to keep their eyes open, and I go in and look at their screen time, because parents, you can do that, and I'm like, why were you on the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning? And they'll come up with something like, well, you know, Kimberly had blah, 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 da, 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 da. No, I do not care. At 3 o'clock in the morning, your eyes should be shut. You should be asleep. Or they will say, you can't take my phone. I need music to sleep to. Great, there's something called a CD player. I will get you. I can get it at Walmart for like $12 because ain't nobody else want them. Or, but I use that for my alarm. Great, Walmart also has alarm clocks. Yeah, welcome to my world. This is how I grew up, you know. They're gonna give you all kinds of like pushback, because for them, it's their security blanket. What's happening in our world with digital media, and I think that this does play into, like you guys were talking about, the fear of change, is that it feels like it's just taking over our world. We cannot, you know, as I was saying earlier, like it's not like we're entering into this and then there's not an enter and exit. It is just our new world. So it's up to us as adults to set some boundaries for ourselves and for others, and keep our people in check. So a couple of examples of this is, I think that social media, digital media, virtual media there's a direct correlation between I think there's a direct correlation between the ability of our young folks to express themselves and to feel empathy, and the amount of time they spend texting and on social media. A lot of the physical cues just don't happen in texting. It doesn't happen in, you know, Snapchat or Instagram messages or anything like that. And so, and there are a few studies that have come out, and some that are in the process of being studied in terms of this correlation, this link between electronic communication and our kids' ability to express themselves. And I think that that's important for the church to pay attention to. I think it's important for the church to understand, because I feel like one of the things that is falling through the cracks is our ability for empathy. Empathy is not something that I don't believe it's something that we are like naturally born with. It's a skill that's developed. We will feel sorry for people. That's too bad. Gosh, that's horrible. I hate that for you. That's not being empathetic. You know, so empathy takes practice. It takes nurturing. It takes, you know, some fertilization and some coaching and some, you know, conversations. I feel like, you know, sometimes our digital media gets in the way of that. And what kind of world are we creating if the people in this world don't have empathy for one another? And my fear is that we're starting to see the fruits of that in the last couple of years. We can't find the common ground. There's no, you know, even curiosity about another person's viewpoints or grace given. And I think I am wondering what how that plays with social media and digital media and that type of thing. So there definitely is a dark side, and I would encourage you and invite you as members of the church to think about that. And how can your church address that? What's our role in this as people of faith? We're supposed to care for one another. And I because we're moving so fast in this direction, are we taking the time to really stop and see some of these pitfalls that we as a society are falling into? Okay, go ahead, yeah. And then I'll come to you. Yeah.
So, hi, I'm Virginia. I was online earlier, and it's nice to be here in person with you all.
Yay!
I'm thinking a lot about what you just said as pitfalls of media and why we're asking questions, but I'm also thinking about opportunities. And this newly retired individual had shared about like the learning curve. And so I'm thinking about the generational differences and the levels of access that folks have. And now that we've got media on our phones, I think it's also an opportunity, right? Because there are studies that show that folks with limited access, now that we've got access on our phones, can engage more.
Absolutely.
And so I'm thinking about those opportunities for community building and for connection. And to bring it full circle on your point, I think, yes, we need to teach media literacy, and we need to teach social phone manners, for lack of a better term. But I also think that there's an opportunity for us to have exposure.
Yeah.
Like, we've been doing a common read at our church about the around the book Cast. And some folks have talked about, well, growing up in Iowa, I didn't have any connection with any brown people. And so what I'm instantly thinking about is like, right, but here's the internet. And so now we can hear people's stories in ways that we might not have previously. And I know that the algorithms may not allow us to be exposed to others genuinely, but I think that that's an opportunity for us as a church community to dig in deeper. Even though there are some pitfalls, I think we should let the light come through too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I am a huge proponent. Now, before I say this, let me preface this with, I think Facebook is a company with a whole host of problems, and I really wish that they would get their stuff together, and I am not a Mark Zuckerberg fan. However, that being said, they have recently, in the last year or two, created a faith component and faith partners and faith communities. And I encourage you guys to look into how you could become part of that network. But Facebook has, in the last year, shifted their focus to groups. A matter of fact, in their algorithm, they put groups above pages. So sort of nobody can break or knows the full algorithm, but in sort of their hierarchy, it's your family, you'll see posts from your family on your newsfeed first. And then specifically the family that you most interact with. I do not see my Aunt Denise on my feed. I just don't interact with her that much. And then but I always see my cousin Brittany, because I interact with her all the time. So it's the first tier is family. The second tier is friends, who you interact with a lot in your friend list. The third is groups. And then the fourth is pages. So like the PC USA page, that's not going to come up in your feed very often. St. Andrew's church page will not come up in your feed very often, but a group will. So think about the Facebook groups you might currently be using. I have a friend of mine who is really into knitting. God love her, she tried to teach me, and I was like, Karen, this is not a match. This isn't working for me. But she's heavily invested in this knitting group. People from around the world are in this knitting group. I have another friend who's really into bicycling. There's bicycle groups. So a group can be anything. It's a place on Facebook that can be a space for people to gather around a passion or interest. And groups can be public or they can be private, or they can be secret. So you could have a secret group with just like, I don't know, your coworkers. And nobody else knows about it. Nobody knows that that group exists. Nobody can see it. Nobody can find it. That's a secret group. You can have a private group. That's like the Communicators Network group, where you can find us. It's a private, searchable group. So you can't just join it. I or one of the administrators of the group have to approve you. You can't see who else is in the group. Or you could have a public group, right? That's open to anybody. You don't have to answer any questions to join, whatever. Well, what Facebook is saying is we want to create these groups where people with a shared interest or passion can go and have deeper conversations, where they can go, and I always kind of relate it to my Mammy's house, my grandmother. Mammy had a big front porch on her house, and every weekend, Sunday after church, we would go over there, and she had a swing on her front porch. And I mean, the whole family would show up. I mean, I'd have my cousins and my aunts and uncles, and we'd all go to Mammy's for dinner after church. We all gathered on the front porch when it was nice. And we'd have people walk down the street, and they'd say, "Hey, Margie, how you doing?" And Mammy'd say, "Oh, it's great. You enjoying this weather?" "Yeah, it's great. See you later." "Okay." That's your page, right? People are just scrolling through. "Hey, how's it going?" "Oh, okay, well, that's nice to know. Good, see you later." Now, somebody come walking down the sidewalk. "Hey, how's it going, Marge?" "Oh, it's going great. How are you doing?" "Well, you know, Johnny lost his job earlier this week." "Oh, really? What happened?" "It was another layoff at Ford." "You doing all right?" "Well, we're getting by." "Why don't you come on in? Come on, let me get you some tea. Come on in." She come up to the porch. Before you know it, they're around the kitchen table. Because that's when the conversation's getting real. That's when you need a little privacy. You need to feel safe having that conversation. That's your Facebook group. It could be a book study. It could be a small group class. It could be a mom's group. It could be a volunteer group for, you know, a group that volunteers at your church. It could be just about anything. And the more that your group members interact with that group, the more often it's going to come up in their feed. If you guys are a part of any Facebook groups, you will notice, think back, are you seeing those groups more than you're seeing pages? Mm-hmm, you sure are. Yep. So think about that when you're thinking about your intentional pathway on getting people who are online for your worship invested into your community. Create a Facebook group for them that is centered around learning more about the PCUSA, learning more about your community, learning, you know, have a group for people who are, you know, invested in like the community garden out here. You'll have everything on there from new recipes to the volunteer schedule to how people can, you know, how we can bring that out in the community. You'll be surprised. All kinds of stuff on that. Okay, what questions do you guys, Sarah, you want to come on up and we're gonna chat. You want to sit in the chairs or are we just gonna? Love it, love it. Jeff has instructed me we have to sit over here, something about cameras.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm just kind of going to field and facilitate a question and answer time. And I guess, well, one question we had on the online chat was about baptism and if you can do that virtually.
This is a theological question. Oh, y'all. Right, so you answered that question?
Yes, Jeff did answer it, but my wife was the one asking that question.
Yeah, I read that answer, but I'm not going to say first. If you.
So here's what I would say to that. Okay, a couple of things. I would say that my preferred path would be that the family come in to the church, if possible, and record the baptism, and then show it, as part of your worship service, on Sunday. Now, if it's a family that lives, like let's say your church is in Iowa, and this family lives in Louisville, Kentucky, well, the great thing about the Presbyterian church is we're connectional, so maybe you could work something out there. And then there's this thing where it gets like super theological, and I just saw something about baptism on another Facebook group. I think the Presbyterian, and I am not a Presbyterian pastor, I need to clarify that, so I do not know the Book of Order very well. So Rob, you might be the best one to handle this. I am a UCC pastor and we're in connection with the Disciples of Christ, and we see baptism a little different. I believe the Book of Order in the Presbyterian Church says that someone has to be baptized in the name of the Father, in the triune God, right? And I believe that it also says there are no re-baptisms. We affirm baptism, but there's only one baptism. It's not like you fall out of God's grace, okay? You dunked, you sprinkled, you're good. God's not revoking that. That's about all I know in the Presbyterian Church about baptism. So my thing would be, and I think it has to be done by an ordained clergy in the PCUSA.
And it's a communal act.
Yeah, and it's an act of the community to, right, because the community says it is a covenant relationship between the community and the child and the parents of that child, that they will help raise that child in the faith, that they will support and encourage and all of that.
Until they want to
until they are confirmed, until they confirm their faith. See, that's like the UCC. This is all stuff that entering into this new age, we've got to figure out. Whenever I was a United Methodist pastor before I was kicked out, because I was defrocked whenever I came out. They don't like us too much right now. I had to go to, as part of my education, I had to go learn how to do communion, the Eucharist. And did you know that there are special hand motions that you have to do? Did you know that? Seriously, yeah. In some faiths, there's like special hand motions. My wife and I called it bibbidi bobbidi boo. Because, and I'm not trying, please understand, I'm not trying to make light. I really am not. I think it is one of the most holiest and sacred things I think we can do is go to the Lord's table. And I think that it is a sacred and life-changing moment every time I take communion. I wonder if as we enter into this new age, a conversation that needs to be had is how, if we believe that only ordained clergy can do certain sacraments, certain acts within the church, what does that look like for those who cannot join us online, or who cannot join us in person but are virtual? Because in my mind, again, for me, and I can only speak for me, what is most important is I believe in an inclusive God. And if we say to folks, well, you're a digital disciple, then you're other. You're not really a part of our community. The baptism of your child doesn't really matter to us. We're not going to enter into this covenantal relationship because you refuse to come to us. Oh, that feels a little ooh to me. I don't know what the answer is. I don't. And I think that's going to be a continued relationship or conversation.
Can I tell you a quick story?
Yeah.
Jeff, can you cut me off?
You're good now, I think you said.
Am I good? Okay. So I was in another conference and heard this story told about this big church in Chicago. And one day, this man walked into the back and came up to the usher and said, "Hey, I want to be baptized." And the usher said, "Oh, well, you need to sit down with the pastor, and we need to get to know you, and we're going to have to meet with the session, and blah blah blah." And this guy had this funny look on his face, and said, "I've been worshiping with you all for 8 months online, and finally made the decision this morning that I wanted to come in. You've moved me so much that I wanted to come in and be baptized."
Yeah.
Right? And so that showed me this incredible gap, right, that exists between those who are online and those of us who are in the room. And we got to have a conversation about what does it mean to be a virtual member. We get no guidance from the God box about that, right? That's not going on.
Yeah.
So how do we include those folk who are digital in our community, in all aspects of our community?
Yeah. I'm going to put this out in the universe now. I'm writing a book about all of this and this digital divine intersection, and much of what you guys heard today was a preview. And part of the sort of framework for that is, are we keeping the digital folks outside the house? You can just look through this window here. You can, oh, you're welcome. You can see everything that we're doing. Absolutely. And we're glad you're looking through that window. Come on. But are we opening the door for them? Are we truly being hospitable? Are we welcoming the stranger in the 21st century? And what does that look like when it brushes up and hits up against our polity and our way of doing things? And hear me when I say, it's not just Presbyterians who are dealing with this. I mean, this is every denomination are trying to figure out. I mean, I know in my home church, we take communion every Sunday. I'm a huge communion person. I love it. I'm totally John Wesley when he says we should take communion as often, as much as we can. I think he just liked wine, but that's okay. I'm probably wrong on that, don't know. But that was a huge conversation for us, because a huge part of our theology is centered on the table. And everyone is welcome to the table. This isn't our table, this is God's table. This is the Lord's table. And everyone is welcome every week. Well, good Lord, we're online. How do we do that? Does it matter if it's not the juice and crackers? Does it matter if it's not, for Episcopalians, wine and wafer? What if we can't do intinction? We can't do intinctions anymore, which was my favorite way of doing it. So now we get like Jesus in a hubcap is what I call it, the plate that's passed. Always reminded me of a hubcap. I don't know, have you never thought of that before? You're never gonna forget it now, right? Everybody's gonna go into church and they'll be like, that is Jesus in a hubcap. What do we do? What do we do? Well, we decided, we're gonna run with it and we're gonna say, God made everything. It's all a part of God's beautiful, wonderful creation. And so we want you to be a part of this in whatever way you can. And so at the beginning of the service, we said, we will have a time of communion. Go, get whatever you can for communion. And then take a picture of it, send it to us. We want to share with everyone what communion can look like. Well, some people got milk and honey. Thought that was great. That's a throwback to the Old Testament. That's Hebrew right there. That's Hebrew scripture. Love that. The little kids had a story. One little kid said, well, Pastor Stephen always gives us little goldfish crackers for snacks, so it's got to be goldfish crackers. So little goldfish crackers, little cup of juice. Oreo cookies and milk. Personal favorite. Right. Yes. Yes. See, now that's a meme. See, you take that Oreos and milk. Welcome to the Lord's table. Taste and see, the Lord is good.
Our youth group wanted Doritos and Mountain Dew.
Yes.
So, moving on.
I can yammer forever. Y'all are just going to have to tell me to shut up.
But I want to be sure to have room for a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Question about small churches. Who maybe have an older population, maybe without email even, or the comfort of using technology, or help in setting it all up.
Okay.
But one thing I do want to mention is that our presbytery actually has created kind of like a tech team. If you go to our site, maybe we can share it after this, you can find a whole list of people around the presbytery who are open and willing to coming to your church and helping you get things set up or problem solving. So I don't know if you have anything to say about like really small, like 20 people in worship on Sunday.
Okay. And are we talking about people who, it's really small church, 20 people, but not meeting in person? So how do we get that to them, or?
Yeah, or who maybe want that option.
I think one of the cheapest, easiest things to do that is very easy for the older folks is a podcast. You can set up a podcast for less than $9 a month at buzzsprout.com, BUSSSPROUT. I have nothing to do with this company. It's just who I've used for my podcast. And all you have to do is have your pastor take a audio recorder, a digital recorder, and hit record right before they start preaching their sermon. And then hit stop right whenever they're finished. If it's, a setup like this, Jeff can record it and whatever. But for a small church of 20, you can, for not that much money at all, you can get a little digital recorder, and then the pastor just uploads it, plugs it in, comes with a little USB thing, plugs it into their computer, and uploads it to Buzzsprout. Now here's the really cool thing. Buzzsprout will give your church their own Buzzsprout website. And it'll have, you can put your logo on it, you can put like episode, like your sermon, the scripture, a description of it, and it tracks all of your episodes or your sermons. It'll give you a report, this many people listened, this many downloads, whatever. Now, The thing that makes it super easy for everybody is you also get a free app for your phone. Anybody can download your church's podcast app directly on a mobile device or an iPad or a tablet. And the app would look like it's a little circle and it has your logo there, and all that folks would have to do is tap that circle, and then they would see all of your episodes. Yeah.
You said B-U.
B-U-Z-Z.
You said S-S. It's Z-Z.
Yeah, B-U-Z-Z. S-P-R-O-U-T. Buzzsprout.com. And there's a few steps for downloading the app, but if your presbytery has a tech team, Buzzsprout gives you step by step. If you have an iPad, or iPhone, these are the steps you take. If you have an Android, these are the steps you take. If you have whatever. Yeah, Warren.
Sarah, could you say a little more about what you just said earlier about a team in the presbytery able and willing to come in and help set up things?
If you go to, a survey was sent out, I don't know, a year ago, for anyone willing and having expertise and availability who would want to be available to help people get things set up. So if you go to like our presbytery website and then click on ministry teams, and then click on leadership development. What's our committee? Leadership. Yes, find the words leadership development. And then on that page, down on the left, there will be both the survey, but also you can click on the link that will bring you to that PDF with those people.
Or you could reach out to
Annie Thorne.
That's awesome.
So are there any other questions here or even online? Yeah.
I personally think the biggest thing we struggled with was how do you do communion virtually, and we came up with what I think is really super, and we didn't think about it, maybe we should have, was having people take pictures of how they were communing at home. That might have made it even better.
Mm-hmm.
But we basically said the same thing. Use whatever you have, whatever's available, because there's nothing magic about either wine or bread necessarily in the communion service. And that I think probably that was one of the biggest struggles we had for about 12 months. In fact, we even skipped doing communion for several months because we felt we couldn't do it right.
Yeah, I mean, guys, y'all, don't underestimate the Spirit. The Spirit moves. Have we forgotten about the Holy Spirit?
I have a question. I'm from a church that's become smaller and smaller and smaller.
Sure.
Yeah. Have you worked with any churches that are doing combined churches online, where you might be able to go to one site, and I don't know if they do alternating pastors with services or whatever, but they have combined areas of expertise or things that they're offering as a whole, or maybe I'm a musician, so one of the things I'd like to do is take the 5 people from here and 7 from here and 10 from here that want to be a choir and have an online choir amongst several churches. Have you had any experience with and ways of dividing up the costs of technology?
I have not, and frankly, I haven't heard of other churches doing that, and that's too bad, because that's a great idea. I mean, that is a really, really good idea. I love that idea. I think that that is a phenomenal opportunity, and there's no reason why that can't happen, right? There's no reason why that can't happen. I think, just reaching out to other churches, and this is, I think, the beautiful thing about that is that it wouldn't have to be a church in your hometown. Like, you could literally say, Dee, would your church want to partner with my church? We could do that.
Well, we saw some of that. Oh, sorry. Hold on.
Getting my steps in.
Yeah, there you go. We saw a little bit of that, at the beginning of the digital urge to, in the pandemic, is that some churches who were very gifted with music departments and organists would record hymns, and then would they post them and share them. We saw that then, but I noticed that sharing has kind of died down.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, we could have a renaissance. That would help.
Yeah, I think that some of the stuff that comes into play for that is, and this is just, I think it's just human nature. Part of it is we are siloed. And then we get a little territorial. That means that you're going to be taking my people. Look, I don't know if y'all thought about this. These are not our people. I mean, they are not your people, or their people, or their people, or my people. They're God's people. So how about we just put down you're taking my people, and work together to bring God's realm here on earth. Now, I know that maybe I'm being a little too, ideological on that, and just being like, oh, well, in a perfect world, everybody. But I do think it's possible, and I think it's more possible now than ever, because we do have these smaller churches who have a very tight-knit community who love one another and love worshiping together, but just don't have the resources to make it happen. And then you have these other churches, and there's tons of those. But if they just pull the resources together, then it's very, very doable and very possible. But what about these huge churches that have, tons of resources, both, human and financial, and with the digital stuff that they have? I wonder what it would look like if churches like that said to smaller churches who were struggling in getting some of those resources, you can use ours. You don't have a website, and you don't have, that's no big deal. You can put that on we'll have a special place for you and your folks to go to. Absolutely, you can use ours. I wonder what it would look like if larger churches said to the smaller churches, we think that you matter, and what you do and how you create community and how you nurture to the needs of your people is important, and we don't want your people. We want to come alongside you and partner with you so that you can better do ministry. I wonder what that would look like. I think this is a time when we know things are going to change. Things have already changed. So let's just own the change and be innovative and creative and spread the resources around, not for our own personal gain or the gain of our church, but for the kingdom of God. If we said, yeah, I'm going to give it all away. I'm going to give it all away. I'm going to give it to the churches that need it desperately. And we're going to work in this together. What if the whole presbytery said, it's not this small church and this small church and this big church and this big church and this mid-sized church, but we are a presbytery. We're in this together. You need resources. Your folks don't know how to do the technological stuff. We got a team for that. You're already doing that. Just take it a step further. Take it just a little step further. Nobody wants to see churches go under. Nobody wants to see that. You have a great idea of how churches can come together and show the connectivity that we are brothers and sisters in Christ. We are the children of God. We're all in this together. Maybe it is a crazy idea, but I have a feeling that's what heaven is. Let's bring heaven to earth.
Any other questions?
So I've been stewing in this question since your very first question that you opened up with.
Great, I love it.
My easy answer to that first question is yes, we can worship digitally completely, or virtually completely. But then I started thinking about my 4-year-old granddaughter. She lives in Virginia, so I don't see her very often in person, but we connect quite a bit online. However, her demeanor and attitude is very different when we're connecting online than it is when we are in person. And I wonder if there isn't that part of our community, those little kids who think still so much concretely, what is this doing to them? And I don't know how we can ask them that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, being the mom of 4 kids and a former Christian education director that was in charge of you know, the smaller, most vulnerable, I would say, of our population, it kind of weighs heavy on me as well, because I think it matters. It just does. If we cannot grow the faith of our children, the church will die. I get frustrated when people say, the children are the future of our church. No, the children are the church. They're just little people in the church. And so we have to invest in them and their faith formation in this time, just as much as we're worried about the adults. Because I think you're right. They do connect differently online than they connect whenever we're in person. I think that there are creative ways to go about that. And I'll say what I said after the first session, and that is I don't want anybody to think that I'm like, absolutely, church should only be online, and that's the way to go. I think that it is important in any context to think about, number one, the needs of your community. And if you have little people in your community, you're going to have to gather together on a consistent basis. Now, I don't mean that has to be every week, but I know I worked with a church, I consulted with a church in Cincinnati it was about 9 months through the height of the pandemic. And we came up, and they were completely shut down. And the children's minister reached out to me and she said, I'm losing the kids. I know it. I can feel it. I'm losing the kids and I don't know what to do. And she said, then they started to open back up a little bit and the young families weren't coming back. And we all sort of freaked out. We were like, what? We thought they would be the first ones back. And we did a survey, and what we found out was that the young families were like, it is so much easier to not have to drag 4-year-old Johnny out of bed, kicking and screaming, and having a meltdown on the way to church, and blah, 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 and show up to worship not engaged at all because I'm still mad about what happened on the way here or getting ready to come here. So thank you very much, but this online gig is really good because I can sit in my pajamas, Johnny can be in his pajamas, my partner or whomever can be in their pajamas, we can have our cup of coffee, and we can watch worship. And we can be fully present and fully engage. At the same time, they said the thing they missed most about church, community. So we decided, okay, we get that you don't want to come on Sunday mornings, that it's a huge hassle. So we will have every other Sunday afternoon, we'll have a family gathering, a family worship time that's all outdoors. This was, in the spring, summertime, all outdoors. Bring your lawn chairs. Each family, bring your own picnic basket. And we'll sing songs, and we'll have a children's moment of, time with the children, children's moment, children's sermon, whatever, you all call it. And we'll just have community. We'll play a game as a family, whatever. And that worked. They're worshiping online. The kids are getting their formation. And the young families are still getting their sense of community connection and support that they got from one another. So I think we really have to kind of let go of this idea that church only happens on Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. But maybe church happens, Tuesday night. I don't know. I hope that helped a little bit. I mean, I feel you, and I'm with you on that, absolutely.
Jeff, do we have time for one more question? Michelle, did you have?
I was curious, Dee, with PCUSA Communications has been exploring perhaps augmented reality?
So the Presbyterian Mission Agency is, you guys might know, going through a visioning process. And part of that process does include reimagining what, and rethinking about how in and of ourselves we're doing communication, right? And how we're doing things. I do know that the new worshiping communities has a church plant that is a virtual reality church. It's really fascinating. So it's all people that, they have those little glasses, goggle things, and they gather for worship, and that is what they're doing, and that is their worship, that is their church. So I know that there's, in communications department of the PCUSA, we are not there yet. My hopes and dreams, whenever I look out into the future, I would love to see us be able to do all kinds of things and be able to build games for kids and the virtual reality thing and apps and all this kind of cool stuff. But I also think it's important that the local churches and the presbyteries, you guys know what you need. you know what's happening on the ground. So, I think that we've got to find a balance between offering what's needed and not saying, you need to do this. This is where it's at. So, I think that that's, like I said, we're kind of reimagining in this time what we can do to best support you and what you all need. That has not been something that has been lifted up as a need at this point. But it's definitely a growing field and industry. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that for sure.
Dee, thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Before we end with prayer, just a couple of mentions. Warren Jensen, can you stand, Warren, wherever you are? He's going to be leading a post-discussion of our time together today. Warren, I don't know where you're going to be. You're going to be downstairs, upstairs?
We had talked downstairs, but let's just meet out in the atrium.
Up here in the atrium. Okay, so right outside in the atrium. There's also an opportunity to play pickleball in our multi-purpose room across the way if that's something you're into as well. I can't thank you enough for being here today. I hope you found it meaningful and helpful. I hope it sparked a lot of stuff in your head, and hopefully it'll spark more conversation among each other as colleagues in ministry. Dee, we thank you immensely for being here with us. The one thing I'm disappointed in, you didn't mention this as a positive to virtual worship, but that is you can worship at home and in your pajamas, and you can get up and cut the preacher off whenever you want to, too. So I think some people have seen that as a benefit, being at home. So before we depart, let's join together in prayer. Gracious God, God the great communicator, we give you thanks this day for our time together to talk about the ongoing work and witness of your church. As we now depart back to our homes and back to our communities, remind us that you are ever present in our heads and in our hearts, that you're on our left and on our right. You are ever behind us and ever ahead of us in this liminal time, reminding all of us that we're loved, cared for, and cherished as part of Christ's community. Thanks be to God. Amen. Hey, one last person I forgot to thank, and that's Jeff back in the booth. Jeff gets a huge load of credit for putting this time together for us today. So, Jeff, thank you. We're glad we could do it.